The Athletic.
Hi folks, welcome to the final Friday episode of the Athletic FPL podcast before the much needed World Cup break. I'm Mark McGettigan. You'll find me on Twitter at FPL General. I'm hitting the record button just after 2 p.m. on Friday afternoon as the press conferences are coming to an end. The FPL deadline this week is 11 a.m. UK time on Saturday morning. After the chaos before last week's deadline, I will be making my transfer tonight and enjoying a stress-free Saturday morning. I am not risking another website crash. On today's podcast, I'll summarise the team news, answer 10 quick-fire questions from Twitter, discuss captaincy, and talk you through my latest transfer thoughts for Gameweek 16. If you'd like to become an Athletic subscriber, visit theathletic.com/FPL pod to avail of the latest discount offer for new subscribers. There's loads of World Cup content on there at the moment. A quick run through now of the team news ahead of the weekend's action. The Arsenal press conference is not until 3:30 p.m. UK time, so no information from there yet. Also no updates from Aston Villa. At Bournemouth, there's nothing new in terms of the treatment room. At Brentford, Norgard and Janelt are available. Nothing new at Brighton either. This is a very straightforward press conference roundup this week. Chelsea, Jorginho trained today and should be available for the weekend. At Crystal Palace, Edouard will be assessed. At Everton, Calvert-Lewin has been ruled out. I think he's got 3 different kinds of injury. So if you've got Calvert-Lewin, you've probably got to sell him. Onana and Gay are fit. At Fulham, there was no comments from Silva about Mitrovic, so whether they might be embargoed until 10:30 tonight. There's no information on Mitrovic. There was a few tweets I seen earlier this week that suggested from Serbia that Mitrovic might miss the first World Cup match, and if that's the case, we probably won't see him this weekend either. So I think on current information, I'm probably going to sell Mitrovic with my free transfer because to me, it looks like there's a good chance he won't feature. But again, if you can wait a little bit longer, hopefully some information will come out about him before the deadline. But no comments specifically in Friday's presser. At Leeds, Gelhardt will be assessed. There will be a late fitness test for Jack Harrison, and Patrick Bamford has been ruled out. At Leicester City, the very unfortunate James Justin, another serious injury. Poor guy, could miss the rest of the season. We wish him a speedy recovery. At Liverpool, also nothing new there. Manchester City, the big one, and as predicted, Pep gave nothing away. He was asked by the reporter, will Haaland be fit for the weekend? And his reply was, we'll see, we have a training this afternoon, we'll see. He did also say that Haaland was a little bit better, so again, who knows what's going to happen with Haaland this weekend. I'll come back to Haaland when it comes to the captaincy discussion. Calvin Phillips is fine after his recent return from injury. Walker is ruled out, but Cancelo is available. Some people thought Cancelo's red card would rule him out of Gameweek 16. He served a suspension in the Cup midweek, so if you have him, you can use him in Gameweek 16. At Manchester United, Cristiano Ronaldo missed the midweek game due to illness, and he's still a doubt for the weekend due to that, and Dalot is suspended. At Newcastle, Eddie Howe said Callum Wilson trained away from the group this week due to illness and he remains a doubt for the weekend. So with the World Cup coming up, will we see Wilson this weekend? We don't know. So there's quite a few tricky ones in terms of strikers. Wilson's a doubt. We don't know what's happened with Mitrovic. Calvert-Lewin's ruled out. Ivan Toney plays Manchester City. So I think a lot of people will be making forward transfers this game week. Nothing new either at Nottingham Forest. At Southampton, Larios is a doubt. At Tottenham, Sessegnon has a little problem and is not available, so that's good news. I know a lot of people were thinking about a punt on Perisic this week. You're hoping that he plays in attack again, but even if he doesn't, there's no Sessegnon to play at left wing back, so I think that increases Perisic's chances now of being in the starting 11. We don't know what position, but if you were thinking about a Perisic punt, I probably like it more now, even though there's a higher chance that he could play at wing back. The main thing is you just want to get Perisic on the pitch if he's in your FPL team. So absolutely fine to go there as a 1 week punt. Richarlison and Kulusevski have one more training session and they will be assessed in that. No updates from David Moyes at the time of recording at West Ham. And finally at Wolves, Johnny is a doubt. So that is the team news rounded up for Game Week 16. I'm glad I don't have to watch any more press conferences for about a month. 10 quickfire questions now ahead of Game Week 16. The first one is from Elder Hallow. Got caught up in the server meltdown last Saturday, so I have 2 free transfers this week. How does Foden to Trossards and Tony to Darwin sound? But that would mean starting Matt Doherty. So straight away, I'm not too keen on having to start Matt Doherty in your starting 11. Who knows, with Session out, we have seen Doherty play left wing back before. As someone who owns Doherty, that would be nice, but I think I'm going to just leave him on my bench because there's always a good chance of a 1-pointer from Doherty. So in terms of the 2 free transfers, Foden to Trossard and Tony to Darwin, that sounds fine to me. I think Trossard is a great pick this week against Aston Villa. Darwin has a great fixture against Southampton, and I mentioned earlier Tony has the tricky fixture against Manchester City. The issue is with Foden, if you still own him, I did sell him in the panic last week for Trossard, and I'm not going back there because I'm not going to be online 15-20 minutes before deadline this week. I'm just going to get my moves done Friday night and try not to worry about it on Saturday morning. If you own Foden, I've said this every week for the last few weeks, and it's backfired every time, but I still think he's a good pick. If he starts, bit of a differential now as well because most people have got frustrated with him and sold him. So if he does start, we know he's capable of a 15-pointer in any given game week. So I would be inclined to keep Foden. But if it's a part of 2 transfers that improve your squad overall and it's 2 free transfers, like in this case to get Trossard and Darwin, I think that sounds good. For example, Trossard plus Darwin to me sounds better than Foden and Tony because Tony has the difficult fixture. And you've got the rotation concerns with Foden if you can't get online close to the deadline. So yeah, I would avoid starting Doherty as well, just because it's, like I said, very often a 1-pointer there, if even. Question from Gavin Clark. Currently have triple Newcastle defence. Would you stick with it or upgrade Fabian Schär to someone from another team? Could afford anyone except Trent or Cancelo. Which defences do you think will keep a clean sheet this week? So I think it's fine to sell a Newcastle defender to get a better pick because they play Chelsea this week. But again, as long as you don't have issues, for example, Mitrovic, Calvert-Lewin, Callum Wilson being a doubt, you probably want to focus your transfer there. If you've got those issues at the start of this week, my first thoughts were to get rid of a Newcastle defender and get someone like a Perisic for a 1 week punt. But I think I'm set on selling Mitrovic now because I just don't want another 0-pointer in that position. I'll probably just play triple Newcastle defence and hope for the best. If you are selling a Newcastle defender, which teams do I think will keep a clean sheet this week? Arsenal play Wolves, Gabriel Saliba and Ben White, I think, are the safest options there. Manchester City, someone like Akanji. If you can't afford Cancelo, I like that pick. Liverpool can't afford Trent. I think Robertson's absolutely fine as a 1 week punt against Southampton. And Perisic, who we mentioned a few times now, plays Leeds, so there could be attack and returns there. Not overly confident of a Tottenham clean sheet, so that diminishes his appeal a wee bit for me this week. But we know Perisic has plenty of attacking potential, in particular if he does play in attack again. So there's plenty of defensive options out there if you are looking to sell Fabian Schär. Question from Malk. Would you transfer De Bruyne to Salah? I don't think I would. I just think De Bruyne is a fantastic FPL pick. Manchester City, best team in the league. Arsenal fans might not agree at the moment. I think it's pretty close between those two. But Kevin De Bruyne rested again midweek. Mr. Consistent. I miss owning him. Sold him 4 or 5 weeks ago to downgrade to Foden. We all know how that ended up, and I really miss owning the Belgian in my FPL team. So I would be very, very reluctant to sell Kevin De Bruyne, even for a Salah. Both have good fixtures. To me, it's a wee bit of a sideways move, and you could probably use your free transfer more productively to fix a weak link in your starting 11 to make your overall squad better, rather than going from De Bruyne to Salah, who could score equally, and De Bruyne could easily outscore Salah in any given game week. The only thing that might change that is if captaincy's involved. If you're not keen on Haaland, given Pep's most recent comments, or if you can't get online close to deadline and you don't want to captain Haaland, if you think Salah is a better captaincy candidate than De Bruyne, then it's easier to make the move if you're going to put the armband on Salah. But in his own right, I think De Bruyne is a great captaincy candidate for the Brentford game. So it's a no for me on De Bruyne to Salah. I would use my transfer elsewhere. Question from Joe. Kane and Salah are in my squad, but I don't have Haaland. I've got 2 free transfers. What is my best move? Again, very frustratingly, you probably need to wait for team news if you can. Then you got to hope that the website doesn't crash. So there's a lot of variables in play here for Saturday morning, which is I don't want any part of after a very stressful and frustrating Saturday afternoon last week. If you own Kane, if you own Salah, I think they're pretty good picks in their own right. There was a few comments from Conte about Kane suffering from a bit of fatigue midweek in the cup game. I think he came off after the infamous 59 minutes, but I still expect him to start against Leeds, and I would fancy him to deliver in that game as well. So yes, no, Haaland is not ideal, but I still think there's every chance he could get reduced minutes, or he could be completely rested again if this injury needs time to heal. So I would probably just stick with Salah, with Kane, and probably captain Salah in that scenario, unless you want to play roulette, get the team news. If Haaland starts, you probably get him and you captain him, but make sure you have some kind of heart monitor with you, or blood pressure monitor, because you're probably going to need it. Last week was very, very stressful. Next question is from Matthew Oliver. Alvarez or Solanke? So I always tend to go for the player I'm more confident of secured minutes, which is Solanke. He's got a good fixture against Everton. He's got penalties. He's scoring goals from open play as well. Alvarez has started a lot of recent Manchester City games, so could be due for a rest soon. And obviously if Haaland starts, maybe we'll see Alvarez on the bench. We know both can play together, but I would go for the guy who is going to play, and that is Solanke. So Solanke over Alvarez for me this week. Question from Sebastian. This is the question I hate seeing every week. I get some kind of variation of it for the last month or 2 months. Should I start Danny Ward or Nick Pope? So Danny Ward is away to West Ham. Nick Pope is at home to Chelsea. Don't think there's too much in it in terms of fixtures, but I think the way Leicester have improved, I think Danny Ward has really improved himself in his performances. Looks like a totally different goalkeeper now than he did in the early weeks of the season. I've got triple Newcastle defence. Am I confident of a clean sheet? Not overly. I'm more hopeful than expectant. So I think I've got to, tail between my legs again and say I would start Danny Ward if I owned him this week, and I would have Pope on the bench. Question from Rob. Who are the best 1 week goalkeeper punts? So I think if cash is not an issue, you just get a premium goalkeeper for 1 week. You get Ederson, good fixture. You get Alisson, good fixture. If you can't afford those two, Ramsdale probably next best. Ramsdale might be, arguably the best keeper anyway against Wolves. If I had to pick between the three, budget no issue, Ederson at home to Brentford. Question from Jace Watkins. Jace says, I don't think I've ever been worse ranked than I am now after Gameweek 15 in any season. What's your key tips to recover? I've only played my wild card. Disaster. Brought in Foden 3 weeks ago. I hear you, buddy. A lot of us are in the same boat there. But I do have all the other chips available. So yeah, similar position here. Very difficult first 15 game weeks of the season. First 14 game weeks really, because we did miss one. So still have that hope of an extra green arrow to come in the new year. Main tips to recover. The first tip is just enjoy this break. It's a good thing that we do have a break for those of us who are struggling. I think that those who are doing well will be the opposite. You often hear the Premier League commentators saying when a team is playing well like Newcastle, they won't want the break. A team that is struggling, maybe Nottingham Forest, could do with a break. So I think it's the same with FPL managers. If you're having a tough season, the break is good for us. We can take stock, we can reflect, and most importantly, we can plan, we can strategize, we can think exactly how we want to come back and attack the second half of the season. Usually we'd only have a week or two to plan that, but the beauty of this is we've got 5 or 6 weeks. So use the time wisely, switch off for a few weeks, and then come back and start planning how you're going to attack. So use it to your advantage. And if you've got all the chips, there's a long way to go. Things can change very, very quickly. Just don't panic too much. When it comes to the next episode, which will be probably the week before Christmas, I will go into a lot more detail on what those of us who are chasing can do for the second half of the season. So keep an eye out for that episode. A couple of related questions to finish off. Question from Andrew. Will you enjoy the run-up to Christmas, having no FPL to worry about? And a similar question from Simon Ashby. Will you completely switch off from FPL during the World Cup? And would you recommend we all do that? Yeah, I think at least the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if you can push it out to 4 weeks, you should try as much as you can. Switch off from FPL. It's great that the player prices are frozen, so we don't need to visit the website to keep an eye on player prices and stuff. My plan is, I think I'm just going to completely leave my team as it is. I know some people might make a couple of transfers on Saturday after the deadline, because there's going to be one more set of price changes, which is going to be on Saturday night, so probably about 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning UK time. But that's not going to bother me. I'm probably just going to leave my team as it is. Once the deadline passes, try and not log into it for 2, 3, 4 weeks if possible. I will be doing a wee bit of content for Patreon subscribers, so I'll dip in and out from now and then. But it's more, I'll be looking at fixtures, I'll be looking at stats. I won't be visiting the FPL website too much, probably until about 10 days before the Boxing Day fixtures. So my advice is switch off from FPL as much as you can. Probably best to avoid World Cup fantasy as well if you're feeling drained from fantasy, because if you play World Cup fantasy, chances are you'll come back to Game Week 17 and you won't feel refreshed. And if you're not refreshed, you won't make clear and concise, informed decisions. Will I enjoy the run-up to Christmas having no FPL to worry about? Absolutely, because it's a bit of a novelty for me. I've been doing full-time FPL content for just over 4 years now. And this is the first time that I will have a quiet, end of November and first half of December. Usually December is insane for FPL. Games midweek, loads, and you can get 8 game weeks sometimes in a month or a month and a half. So it's a nice novelty. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to visit a friend of mine in Tenerife for a couple of nights. We've got a new arrival due in late February here, so there's a lot of stuff to be done in the house. So I'm just going to switch off from work as much as I can, enjoy time with my wife, get the house ready for the new arrival, and before we know it, we will be talking FPL again. But yes, as much as you can, take a break and come back fresh, because you'll be much more enthusiastic about the second half of the season, and there's a much greater chance you'll enjoy the second half of the season if you switch off during this opportunity. Moving on now to captaincy and potential transfers for the weekend. Captaincy, I guess, depends on whether you want to wait for late team news, whether you want to risk a website crash. I'm a bit torn now. My captaincy's been on Haaland all week. Pep's comments have kind of given me second thoughts now. Like I said, I don't really want to be online before the deadline tomorrow. I like making my moves on a Friday and having a stress-free Saturday morning. So I'm tempted to switch it to Salah tonight and just leave it at that. Salah's got a good fixture at home to Southampton, and then just hope the FPL gods are on my side. Haaland plays and has a quiet one, or he does get reduced minutes and Salah outscores him. So I'm still between Salah and Haaland, so I need to give that some more thought this evening. At the moment, I'm leaning towards switching it to Salah, and then just whatever happens tomorrow happens. Haaland, if he can get online, he can see some early team news. Probably the best captaincy candidate for the weekend. Kevin De Bruyne, if you have him, really like him also. And again, the tip, as always, if you are going to captain Haaland, there is some doubt, so make sure you pick your vice captain carefully as well, just in case Haaland gets 0 minutes. Other options, Kane against Leeds, I like him if you own him, and the Arsenal attackers away to Wolves. So for me, I will sit down tonight and I'll have a long, hard think about Haaland versus Salah. Game Week 16 transfer thoughts. Mitrovic out, and it's going to be one of Darwin or Jesus in. I'm not planning to take any hits this game week. Most likely Jesus. I've kind of missed owning him since I've sold him. I know he hasn't done a huge amount FPL wise, but he passes the eye test every week. Really like what Arsenal are doing this season. So yeah, looking like Mitrovic to Jesus, probably leaning 60-40 in terms of Jesus versus Darwin. Again, we'll give that some more thought this evening as well, but certainly one of those guys coming in for Mitro. That would leave the team looking like Pope, Botman, Trippier, Cancelo, midfield 5, I think, of Salah, Trossard, Martinelli, Saka and Andreas. Currently leaning towards starting Andreas over Tony, with Tony first sub. We just think Andreas has been fantastic this season. Lots of avenues to points. If Mitrovic misses out, maybe he'll be on penalties again, so that's in my mind as well. Haaland's up front, along with whichever new signing comes in, most likely Jesus. Best of luck for Game Week 16, folks, and have a great weekend. Enjoy the break from FPL for the next few weeks. Recharge your batteries and come back fresh for Game Week 17. The next episode will be at some point during the week before Christmas to preview those Boxing Day fixtures and discuss all things unlimited transfers. Thank you for listening in 2022. There will be one or two more episodes in 2022, but just wanted to take this episode to thank you for your continued listenership. I look forward to helping you in the second half of the season. If you've been enjoying the content this season, you can support me at patreon.com/FPL General, where there will be at least one FPL podcast per week during the FPL break. Wishing you all a big fat green arrow this weekend.
The Athletic.